Well, good evening, everybody. We'd like to welcome you tonight to our Hendersonville Regional Planning Commission meeting for Tuesday, September 3rd. Notice that there is a quorum, full quorum. Everybody is here tonight, so we're appreciative of that. And we're going to stand this evening and open in prayer. Commissioner Millsaps, will you open us in prayer, please?
Father, as we approach our duties for this evening, on behalf of the citizens of our city, we ask you, Lord, to give us wisdom, give us a sense of what is in the best interest in both the long and short term for our city. Pray for those who lead us. We pray, Father, for the opportunities that you give us to serve our fellow citizens in these roles. Thank you for loving us, Lord. Thank you for blessing us. Thank you, Lord, for all that you've done for all of us and over time, this great city. And it's in Jesus' name that I approach your throne. Amen.
Thank you. Amen. Noticing tonight that there are no public hearings, is there any request for information and assistance? Hearing none, we'll move down to the additions to the agenda. Are there? No additions. We have the minutes for August the 6th. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Ms. McCormick, second by Ms. Silkwood. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries. We also have the minutes of August 2019. Do I have a motion? Moved by Mr. Altizer, second by Ms. McCormick. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so ordered.
Got an abstention.
Any abstentions? Okay, Commissioner Lee, Commissioner Stringfellow, 2 abstentions on that. I think we've got that. It carries. We have several items on the consent agenda: Hunt Club, Fountain Brook Phase 2, Maple Row Boulevard, Norman Creek, Anderson. Those are the ones on the consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to group.
Move to group and approve with all staff comments.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second for moving to group with all staff comments. Any discussion?
Does this include the Henderson Lane Medical Office?
No, it does not. It's a site plan. I'm sorry. I just was going further down the agenda.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. No discussion. Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Everything on the consent agenda is carried. Moving on to the site plans, our first order of business tonight will be the Anderson Lane Medical Office Building Site Plan. And Ms. Free, who's handling this one?
Mr. Whitten.
Mr. Whitten.
This site will be located on Anderson Lane across from Lowe's. It'll be a 31,000 square foot single-story medical office building. They've agreed to all staff comments, but they are requesting a waiver from one of the building design standards, which requires that any supports, any canopy supports, have to be bricked from grade up to the top, the ceiling of the canopy. They're proposing a brick base that's 2.5 feet tall, but above that, it just has the exposed steel supports the rest of the way to the ceiling. Those steel supports have been designed to have curves in them to echo the curved roof line. And also they have concerns that providing brick all the way to the top might obstruct the driver's view of people who are walking from the parking lot to the front of the building. So they'd like to keep that brick low to the ground rather than going all the way to the top. So they've agreed to all other staff comments.
Thank you, Mr. Whitten. Is the applicant here? Somebody from the, good. If you would, just introduce yourself and then let's talk a little bit about the waiver you're requesting and kind of share with us.
Hi, my name is Nick Popkowski. I'm a civil engineer with Barge Cawthon. I'm the applicant. In this case, client's currently confidential. I have Nair Architect with me, and they will actually answer any building questions. So I'm going to pass it over.
Yes, I think if you could just I think Mr. Witten's done an incredible job, but if you could just further kind of give us some overview of why you're requesting the waiver from the design
Yeah,
standards.
certainly. Name is Doug Kramer, Vice President of Architecture with Nair Architects. As we've developed the brand for the client, we've spent a good deal of time in the overall design of the building and the canopy and the supports. It's actually one of the areas that we spent the most time working on the design of and looking to create that brand for them and then adapting the design where necessary for the municipalities that they're going into. But the medical nature with patients coming in and out of the facility have a strong concern, as Timothy mentioned, for visibility, making sure that not only pedestrians are seen for the traffic coming in and out of the facility, but also for folks to find the front door as they approach the building. And in raising the stone to a person's height or even a little bit less obscures the front door and obscures the person standing between the piers. And we have seen in Hendersonville the Clarendale facility
Yes, I looked at that today.
where there is a base.
Yeah.
It is higher than what we're proposing. We think it's important to keep it low for visibility, but they have a wide flange section, an H-shaped member that extends off that creates a flourish, a design feature for their facility. We're proposing something similar where we get a flourish, some whimsy with the rolled pipes. It's not simply just a plain tube, which in our view is really what the spirit of the ordinance looks towards, is not simply having a very utilitarian canopy structure. You want to be proud of this. You want it to integrate with the design of the building. And we think we've done that, and we respectfully request the waiver from the commission.
Okay, thank you. They've agreed with all staff comments, and they're requesting this waiver. Do we have any questions from any of the commissioners? Mr. Woodcock?
Thank you. Item 12, I believe, donation of the right-of-way dedicated to the city. Are there any plans for that piece of land, or is it just unusable to the developer, so we're requesting that they give it to the city?
Is it, Mr. Witten, is that small piece?
Yes, it's very small, like 110 square feet, item 12.
Yeah, what that is where, right here at Maple Drive North, it kind of tees off to that and into the, what would be the right-of-way, and that's what we're just saying, to dedicate that. Kind of cleans up the right-of-way where the edge of this property pokes into it.
And thank you. And for what, the waiver, I have no issues with it.
Thank you. Mr. Woodcock, thank you very much. Now, Mr. Lee.
Yes, I understand that the applicant perhaps wants to remain anonymous, but one thing I'm always interested in, are we creating new services and jobs, or are we simply moving jobs and services from one area of the city to another that improves one part of the city but could create a blight on another part of the city? So could you give us any sort of insight as to maybe not who the occupant or who the person might be that's developing it, but just some sort of idea of the impact it may have?
I'm Brian James. I'm the senior project manager for the facility.
If you would, Mr. James, just introduce yourself and.
I'm Brian James, be the senior project manager for this project. This is going to be a new facility for this client in the area. Whether or not they are going to transfer people from their existing facility that is not in Hendersonville to this new facility, or it'll be all new hires, is undetermined at this point. But this will be a new presence for this client in Hendersonville, Tennessee.
Okay. And it is in the area of medical services?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, medical office services. Okay. And one other question, Mr. Chairman, just a question that I had, and certainly I want to encourage development of this nature in our city, but I know we take a great deal of time to look at the impact of infrastructure when we're considering a new residential project. What consideration, if any, is given when we have a new project or development such as this?
I can cover that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Free.
One of the things that we do, and this is all part of a larger plan development that was approved some time ago. So this isn't a brand-new plan development, and it's actually being done in conformance with the approved plan development. So kind of that window of, hey, you're doing a new plan development, can you help with some off-site kind of costs? That there really isn't the opportunity for that here. What we do look at is at the time we're looking at the site plan, is our Public Works Department and our city engineer's office. They look at the impact on the street and the traffic, and I think in this particular case, there is a payment in lieu that's being required to help with any future off-site improvements along the frontage of the property that may be done later, as well as we made sure to have cross-access. Where we have cross-access for the future, more than likely a building will go here and one could go back here on the back. But when that occurs, then we're requiring a cross-access easement all the way in this direction toward Home Depot and whatever would develop there to have a cross-access. And then as well, out of the back, we're requiring cross-access for whenever this property develops, so that it could tie into Maple Road North. So those are some of the things that we're looking at as far as on this particular project to help make sure that we're looking at infrastructure related to it.
Do we know when this plan development was approved? That property's been vacant for a long time, decades. Do we know when that
Mr.
was
Whitten, you
approved?
can like to answer?
2004, I believe, it's in the same plan development as Walmart and Home Depot. So
Okay.
at the same time as those.
Well, just perhaps something for us to consider in the future as we look at other developments, especially plan developments that are 15 years old. You know, the rules that applied 15 years ago, we weren't placing any fees on many of the things that we're doing. But now most cities, sophisticated cities such as ours are. So I just want to make sure that we're being fair to our developers, but also fair to the citizens of our city, and making sure that we are treating all development in a fair-handed manner. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee. Commissioner Hardwick.
I understand that you do not want to say who the client is at this point, but I do understand from answering Commissioner Lee's question that it is not a company currently in Hendersonville, so it's something new coming to the city. The other couple items, is this going to be inpatient to where people will be staying overnight? Or is it strictly, I go to the doctor, I'm there an hour or so, and then I leave? And is it a multi-tenant or single-tenant building?
It is all outpatient, no inpatient care in the facility, and it is multiple disciplines where you come see a specialty doctor or a general practice doctor. So no inpatient or long-term stays within the facility.
So it's a single tenant,
It's
not.
a single group with multiple
Multiple-
practices
okay, got it.
within that.
Understand.
Thank you. Commissioner Woodcock.
Sorry to jump back in. Keith, you mentioned payment in lieu of. How much money is the city receiving?
It's just shy of $50,000.
49,400.
Thank you. Do you have an estimate of the new jobs created, or jobs period? I know they may be transferring, but. All right, thanks.
All right, thank you. Ms. Longmire.
I would like to ask you about the variance that you want. I know you've curved it. It has a much nicer look than if it were straight up with steel. I think it's steel, is it not?
It is steel, yes.
So are you going to leave it the natural steel color?
No, it is planned to be painted the white to match the architectural metal panels
So
that are
what
on the
happens
building.
to that over a period of time when you paint over steel? I don't
Yep.
know.
So the process, the painting process is multi-step, and that's multi-step over top of the primer that's applied to the steel. So it's a long-term finish. It's not something that's going to rust.
What is
rust
long-term?
through. Is
A
it
range, give me a range.
15 year?
Depending on the elements, it comes with a 15-year
Well, I've only been on the commission for 8 months, and I'm sure that in this period of time, we've given at least 4 variances for various things, and maybe 8. And I I have a hard time with that, because you have a rule, and then you say, oh, but this doesn't apply to you. We'll let you do different. And then somebody else comes up and says, well, you let them do different, and I want to do different, and I'm not doing the same thing, but it is different. And I just don't think that that's a good pattern.
Mhm.
And I do feel, I don't know, but I do feel that the steel beams would be less costly than putting whatever you have to put in the middle of brick or stone to hold it and go all the way up.
Mhm.
I don't go with I don't buy the idea that it's going to constrict people from finding the front door.
Okay.
So, I'm not, I'm worried about what it looks like later.
Mhm.
Is it going to be painted? Who's going to be there? Maybe these people won't even be there in 15 years. And then you get into a situation of where we have some of this on Main Street in Hendersonville. It's not your most attractive drive to bring somebody into Hendersonville right up Gallatin Road.
Mhm.
So that's my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Longmire. Ms. McCormick?
My question is for Mr. Witten. The purpose of the brick pillars is for what purpose? Is it structural or is it just aesthetic?
No, the ordinance is for aesthetic purposes to avoid just having bare, non-ornamental structural members that are just, there supporting the canopy that don't have any design features to them.
Okay, so just out of curiosity, and I understand it's our choice to provide the waiver, but in my view, aesthetically, this is pleasing.
Yes.
I mean, it looks a lot better than I can imagine,
Yeah.
just a big, tall brick exterior. So, I mean, if our purpose is so it will have an aesthetic flair and complement the building, I can't imagine that a big, tall brick column would really accentuate that pretty building there. So it's strictly for aesthetic purposes, then in theory, this kind of fits the spirit of what we were going for when we put the brick in there, right?
Right, I would agree with that. This is not just a simple matter of a bare, non-ornamental structural member. It is a design guideline, so there's often cases where applying guidelines strictly might result in something that's inferior to what you're wanting, so it has to be judged.
Okay, thank you. With that in mind, I move to approve the project, including the waiver with all staff comments.
We have a motion and a second. Motion by Ms. McCormick, second. Who seconded that?
Woodcock.
Mr. Woodcock? Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? One no. Ms. Longmire. All right. It's so ordered. Let's move on now to the first MIL Suite Detached Dwelling Site Plan on 1210 Centerpoint Road. Who's handling that one, Mr. Free?
That would be Sydney Simpson is here if you have any questions.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Simpson? You have it before you, or we could just entertain a motion. Mr. Millsap makes the motion. Any second?
Second.
Second by Ms. McCormick. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So ordered. Move on to the second detached dwelling site plan, which is 1214 Spear Point Drive. I assume, once again, Ms. Simpson's handling that?
Correct, yes.
Okay, do we have any questions for her on this site plan? Hearing none, do I have a motion? Move to approve of Ms. Stringfellow, second.
Dr. Lee?
But Dr. Lee, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's carried. Now we move on to the Melosi Headquarters site plan. Who's handling that one, Mr. Free?
Mr. Whitten?
Mr. Whitten.
This site's located on South Centerpoint Road. It's south of and adjacent to Southern Nurseries. It's zoned industrial, and all the lots around it are zoned industrial. They are requesting a waiver from the city's building design standards. They're proposing a building that's got metal on all four sides. The city's standards state that in industrial areas, you can have metal on the sides and the rear of buildings so long as they're screened from the street, but the front of the building should be brick or stone or EIFS or some other complying material. So, like I said, they are requesting to do metal on the front. They have placed the building well back at the street. It will sit back about 540 feet from Center Point Road. So the impact of the building may not be as great as it otherwise would be if it were right up on the street. They will be providing some evergreen screening to help hide the building from the street. And I think they have indicated they may in the future have a second building that would be built in front of this one. This would further hide it. As far as other buildings around it, most of the buildings, or a lot of the buildings on South Center Point Road are predominantly metal or a combination of metal and concrete block. The two largest buildings on South Center Point Road are predominantly metal or metal with some brick or concrete block. The two newer buildings, and by newer I mean they might be 10 years old, the building immediately to the south of this proposed building is actually all brick. And then the Southern Nurseries building to the north of it is concrete block with some, I think it's got some wood on the front of it. So kind of a mixture of materials there in that industrial section. Typically, or usually for a request such as this, we would try to ask for some amount of a complying material in the front, like maybe a brick or stone water table. But they are asking for 100% metal on that front.
Thank you, Mr. Whitten. Is the applicant here? Good. If you would just introduce yourself, and then I guess from my standpoint, it would be good if you could explain to us why you want the waiver. Now, I did notice, that you had mentioned that there was going to be possibly another building that you were going to build out in front of it. Have you got an actual site plan on that? Have you got no timetable, and it's not platted? Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So Van Oldham Greenwood Design. Essentially the situation on this site is that we have a client that is growing into their space. And this particular lot, the reason we're asking for the waiver is kind of has to do with where it's located next to the nursery site, as well as on Center Point Road just in general. This whole area has got flooding issues among many other challenges to have to deal with. So what we are hoping that will happen here is that he can put up his metal building, he can begin to office out of there in a very limited capacity, and then in time his business has grown extensively over the last 7-8 years or so. His hope is his business will continue to grow, and this will be the facility that he uses for his workforce, and then his office building will be built in front. We do not have a timetable on that. We do not have a site plan, a plat, anything like that, but that is his intention. And in good faith, in order to try to, I guess, meet halfway with the city's requirements, because we certainly are in violation. Like Mr. Whitten said, we've provided ample evergreen screening to get us from this point to the point where we would be building another building in front.
Okay.
I would like to bring up one other issue, though, that is in the comments just for because it ties in. My client has no problem at all with doing the curb and gutter and the sidewalk in front of the building next to Center Point Road. However, as Mr. Whitten mentioned, it is 540 feet from where this building is located to Center Point Road. So for us to do post curb the entire way down there is really expensive, number one. And number two, in all likelihood, this is very temporary, and it's going to be torn out and replaced at a later date when the better building is built at that time.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Freed, talk to us a little bit, or Mr. Witten, in the zoning ordinance with this particular area, are there any changes that are coming about if this zoning ordinance should prevail?
I guess you're talking specifically in regard to the building architecture or
Yes.
materials?
Yes.
No, the materials requirements will stay the
The
same.
same. Okay. All right, Mr. Woodcock.
Thank you. This question may be for Keith. Is the road gonna dead end past this location, or is that go down further into anything
No,
else?
I think it just dead ends right there. It's just a driveway that kind of comes past right here,
That's the dumpster location.
dumpster, yeah.
Yes, sir.
So this is all just a driveway to access the property, but it's not a road connection to anywhere else over here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woodcock. Ms. McCormick.
Is there a rendering at all?
Yes, it's in this.
What's it?
We didn't have the image up there, but
I'm gonna say, look, I didn't
if
see
you'll
it.
look in this document that's with your stuff, is this where it is, Timothy?
Yes.
Should be the last two pages.
Okay, because I looked, but I didn't see it. I didn't see it go far enough.
I'm sorry I didn't get that up here on that. Yeah, if you just look at those, second to the last page, you can see, looks like that. Yeah, like this guy.
Okay, oh, on that. Okay.
And so I think
I see it
what
now.
Timothy was talking about is that where you see that top elevation that says front elevation, that's where Timothy was saying typically we might get, if we gave a waiver, we might get at least maybe a water table or something, brick or stone across the front of it. So,
Okay. Commissioner, any more questions?
Yeah,
Commissioner Lee.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm going to vote against the waiver. I think we have to start at some point improving that property. Has already been mentioned by Mr. Witten, the last two buildings that have been built in that area. One was all brick, the other met the standard. And an old saying, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. So we hope the company will grow and that something else will be out in front, but there's no guarantee of that. And this is not an attractive building whatsoever. And so I plan to vote against the waiver request. I'm very supportive of the company relocating here. I'm glad that property is being used, but I just can't, that's a bridge too far for me.
Excuse me, can I ask a question? Or
Go
is
ahead.
that okay? Could we meet halfway and do the watermark like Mr. Witten had recommended?
Well, that's not what came before us. I mean, what we've got is, we're not in compliance. We've had an opportunity to work that out. That hadn't been worked out before now, and I'm inclined not to support the waiver. Support the project, but not the waiver.
Let me just kind of echo that, and then I'm gonna try to get some direction from Mr. Witten for the Planning Commission as to, in a perfect world, what it would take for the building to be compliant with all these things, and of course about the water table that you mentioned. But I would say that along that corridor, not actually that road, but that corridor of Main Street, that we are seeing some new construction come up. Not so new, but the new storage facility. You've got the MAPCO down there that's been built, and we're trying our best to refurbish that area. Even if this is an industrial setting, I think that the minimum standard of brick front, as we have done so many other times, and this does have more than an aesthetic viewpoint. It's got something to do with not only what's there, and so many times we just look at what's there, especially in these particular submittals, but we have to be thinking about what's past this, what develops more. And I think that coming up with, as Mr. Lee points out, I think coming up with some kind of plan that we can approve, notating that we want their business here in Hendersonville, but at the same time, coming up with a standard of construction that would be suitable, I think would be good. So, Mr. Whitten, tell us, what would it take on this particular plan to make this building more compliant with design standards?
It would take making the entire front facade of that building either brick or stone, or it could be ephes, but no metal.
Okay. All right. Is that something that could be done?
Yeah, as usual, I'm faced with a question that is difficult to answer. Of course, it could be done. My client certainly doesn't want to do it, but if that's the will of this body, then I guess that's what we'll do. I would ask though for a decision on the post curb as well. If I do have to brick the front of the building, I really don't want to have to put in post curb everywhere that I'm just going to most likely tear out.
So, just to be clear, you've agreed on the post curb to this point.
I think communicated this afternoon that we were going to talk about that tonight. I think I communicated that, but if that didn't get into your report, I apologize.
Because I can't speak for the whole commission, but I'm just saying that if that is part of our agreement, then it becomes a situation of, okay, it's a trade-off, and it would be up to the commission whether or not they want to allow that to happen, or if they say, we really, the curb discussion is obviously part of the discussion, but it's still about the building as well.
Yes,
so
sir. Yes.
We'd have to, so we to go forward, our options would be to deny this site plan, okay? We could move it backwards, or we could amend what you're wanting here that's been provided. And so, Mr. Whitten, as the planner here that's handling this, give us some wisdom here on moving forward on this.
I believe, Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we can have a conversation between the applicant and the city engineer in planning about the post curb versus extruded curb. It might be there's some compromise there where we have post curb a certain distance back and then extruded curb from there on. Again, that's subject to engineering, and so subject to your will, that we could have that conversation with them.
But in this, if we approved it and stipulated that the front of the building needed to be brick, stone, or ephes, and that we would leave the post-curb discussion up to staff engineers, would that be something, from your standpoint, that would be a doable thing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are there any questions from the commissioners on any of this?
Just from a design standpoint, I know you don't have the site plan. Generally speaking, where would you place the front office building, knowing it's going to be probably 2,000, 2,500 square feet?
Yes, sir. So it's going to go right there, nearly where the magnifying glass is right now, maybe a little bit up, kind of how it wiggles around. That's where I would envision that it's going to be. However, it's hard to say because once you start talking about parking requirements, stormwater requirements, how it's graded, different things like that, then it becomes a moving target. And to add on to what Mr. Whitten said, extruded curb is no problem at all. We'd be totally fine to do that.
The other thing I need to recuse myself. I have been a broker for Melosi, not on this project, but with them in the past.
I appreciate that, Mr. Hardwick. Okay, so commissioners, what's your pleasure here? We can deny this as presented. We can make an amendment with the stone or brick or ephes combination thereof of the front, and then the discussion of the curb to be left to staff. Or if you have any other ideas, we can do that. Mr. Woodcock and then Mr. Lee.
I may speak for myself, but I would prefer it be pulled, you guys work out those details and bring it back the final product. That's what I would prefer.
Okay, Mr. Lee.
Well, I certainly have no objection to pulling the project either. I was just going to say, if the applicant is willing to meet the building standard and we leave it up to the others, to our staff and to them to work out the curbing situation that's acceptable, I would be willing to go forward and to approve it.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Lee.
So should I make that in the form of a motion?
Let's make a motion and see what the will of the commission is, and if it doesn't pass, we'll do something else.
So move.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to approve this project with the amendment that the front of the building needs to be brick, stone, or ephes, and that the discussion of the curb and gutter situation as far as footage and distances would be worked out by engineering and staff. That's the motion before us. Do we have a second? We have a second by Ms. Silkwood. Any more discussion? All right. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We have two that are opposed, which would mean that it passed. So
Excellent.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a nice night.
All right, the next one is Norman Creek Amenity Center, and are you handling
Mr. Green.
Mr. Green?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the amenity center for Norman Creek, and this includes a pool, bathrooms, some chairs, pergola, playground, all located within the open space of that development. Pulte's worked with the city to put a community mailbox at this location. We'd driven out there as staff, and we noticed that the community mailbox that's now required by USPS, even in single-family neighborhoods like this, we noticed that it was on Norman Way, and we're like, this is going to be a collector road. This is going to cause a problem, and we got in touch with Pulte, and they agreed to move that to the amenity center. So fortunately, I think that will resolve any future issues along Norman Way with people collecting mail, stopping in the middle of the road. So that issue's been addressed with this amenity center site plan. One other item of note, also that'll also provide more safety and designated parking for that activity as well. Fire comment number 1, we've talked to the fire department that allowed that to be removed, but there is still one item that remains on this site plan in regards to the gazebos. There was gazebos located on the original site plan that was submitted, and it was removed at the second submittal when we received the second submittal. And one of the things we noted that we'd like to have those placed back, and if you see those right there at the edge of each of the pergolas there. We looked at the final development plan, and that they did include gazebos on that, and we would recommend or suggest that if this is approved, it would be contingent on the addition of gazebos as it was on the approved final development plan for Norman Creek, and with the design acceptable to planning staff.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Is the applicant here? Good. If you come up, introduce yourself, and I guess since you're agreeing with fire comment number 1, just explain to us about the gazebo issue.
Yes, my name is John Claxton. I'm with Thomas & Hutton Engineering. In regards to the gazebos, when we ran the renderings showing the gazebos, they just didn't appear to provide as much usable area as we thought, so they kind of seemed a little too small, to be honest. We also agreed to provide shade in other areas on the pool deck area. So that's kind of our stance on it, why we pulled them to begin with.
Any questions for the applicant? Ms. McCormick?
What's the issue with putting them back? I understand that you pulled them because it didn't look as grand, I think, as you initially said, but and staff is recommending that you put them back, what's the issue with putting them back?
I'm going to let Tom Martin with Pulte speak to that.
Tom Martin with Pulte. As John touched on, when we did the renderings, they did look too small. What we're looking out for is the flexibility of the space in the future for our residents that are going to be utilizing it. So that's our reasoning for removing it. When you get the structure in place that needs to be there for those gazebos to stand properly and in accordance with code, just gets to be a lot in a relatively small space. It's something that didn't come up until we went through the rendering process. Otherwise, we would have removed it from the design before even going through submittal. So that's our kind of stance on it. We think that it's a better product without them. As John touched on, we would be adding some umbrellas to give flexibility to the pool space for the residents. But I'll defer to you guys as far as a decision on that.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Any questions from other commissioners? Ms. Silkwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Personally, I would disagree. I think removing the pergolas makes the building look very basic and honestly kind of boring. And there's going to be a lot of families seeking out shade, so they're going to want those pergolas there just for a little bit of shade. You know, when you place an umbrella, really that only covers 2 pool chairs. But a space like this, you could easily have lunch under there or something like that. So I think the pergolas add a lot of value. They also make the building look very nice. So I would be in support of keeping the pergolas.
Just to clarify, the pergolas, as you see there, are remaining. That's what we're proposing on the screen.
Mhm.
It's the gazebos that would be removed.
So, okay. So do you have a rendering of what the gazebos would have looked like?
I don't know if they're in that packet. It was with the original submittal.
I don't think they're, are they on there? I didn't see them.
I didn't see them. I just see the 2
I don't think we had any.
pergolas, I assume.
Yeah, if you go to the site plan, that's going to be the closest that you can see.
Yeah.
You'll have an aerial top-down view of them.
Point them out for everybody. So the pergolas are there.
Yeah, the pergolas are right here where the X's are. I'm sorry, the pergolas are right here.
Right.
The slats, and
Right.
then these were the gazebos. And tell me if I'm wrong, Grant, I think the approved final development plan that had the amenities, I think it just said gazebo. Did it say gazebo? Yeah, so it was just a gazebo. Would it be something, would you all be willing to look at putting maybe just a larger gazebo and maybe not 2, but maybe doing one that's a little bit larger? And one of those probably would have to be over in this location.
I would tend to go towards actually the other location,
Okay.
just so that we're not impeding any of the excess egress on the main section of the pool deck. So I think that we would be open to making that plan south gazebo a little bit larger to give a good spot, as Ms. Silkwood pointed out, for nice lunch spot somewhere that would be usable.
And in looking at it, he's talking about right here, right? Yeah, at that location. And kind of what the planning staff is doing with this is whenever there's been an approved preliminary or a final development plan, then we're looking at, hey, what did the developer have as amenities and, kind of looking at that. In this specific instance, there wasn't a whole lot of detail about the pool or anything, but it did say that there'd be a gazebo and a tot lot and a pool, and they do have that. But, overall, the appearance of the building itself is just kind of plain, but it's kind of utilitarian for what it is. But what we were looking at is that it had in there that a gazebo should be in there, and the staff felt like we needed to make sure to bring that point forward and give the planning commission the opportunity on whether we keep that or not. But the staff does feel that the umbrellas are very important, but really for families and things, having a gazebo would be somewhere you could have, you could eat underneath there or just sit underneath there and not be just like under an umbrella.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, Ms. Silkwood, you going to get some more questions?
No.
Okay. Mr. Woodcock.
Thank you. The comment number 1 for the fire department, that seems really important. I'm curious why it was added and then why you chose to remove it.
We can get it maybe at the microphone to address that.
Mr.
You
Nolan.
can see him. Can you hear me? I'm Shane Nolan with the Hendersonville Fire Marshal's Office. If you go to the beginning where you pull in right there, there is a hydrant coming in right there at the entrance, and with that hydrant, they meet what they need to with that right there.
So just maybe like a little oversight why it was added?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the applicant has agreed to, before we do this, what, off the top of your head, I don't have the site plans in front of me, what are the dimensions of the present shown gazebos that were on that plan? Do you have any idea?
Off the top of my head, approximately 15 by 15 to the edge of roof line.
Okay, so we'd have two 15 by 15 structures, which could house a couple of families. If they go bigger gazebo, what are you thinking?
I mean, in fairness, I think that looking at it from an aesthetic standpoint as well, I think the design that we initially submitted is going to be the best, providing the two kind of equally weighted on either side of the building. I think that we would just refer back to our original submittal.
I think that would be okay. And just as an aside, if you want to go ahead and throw some umbrellas out there too, I think you should. I think your residents would like that, so. All right, so we don't, nothing's on the boards here, so technically a motion that would, with all staff comments, approval with all staff comments of adding those back would be the motion we would need on this. So move, by Commissioner Millsaps, second by Mr. Altizer. Any more discussion before we take a vote? Okay, we're approving with all staff comments. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's carried. So, thank you.
Thank you.
We're moving on now to preliminary plats, the Cove at Old Hickory. Mr. Free, who's handling that?
Mr. Green.
Mr. Green.
No.
There you go. I'm pressing the button and he's depressing.
Thank you, sir. This is an 11-lot subdivision proposed off of Hazelwood Drive. This is, I believe, on the First Peninsula. This is a preliminary plat that will require construction plans be submitted and a final plat. Several items still remain left on this preliminary plat. I think it can be worked through, but we'll definitely want to have a revised submittal from the surveyor and engineer here within the next week or two to ensure that we can get all this straightened out, but if it is approved. But we do have some fair slopes on this property, and we'll be able to see more on the construction plans how that will be addressed and how they'll make these slopes work. But otherwise, it does meet the SR1 requirements.
And they are agreeing with all staff comments?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Any second? Second, Ms. Stringfellow. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, now we go to staff review. It's carried, so ordered. Staff reviewed projects, Michael Archibald property, staff reviews that are pending, City Electric Supply, Durham, Indian Lake Market, Restoring Hope Church, Simmons property, resubs, Southview Professional Plaza, and Verizon Small Cell. And those are all staff projects that are either approved or pending. And on the other, we do have a design guidelines clarification that's been submitted. It doesn't really require a vote, but Mr. Free, would you bring us up to date on what this is?
Yes, and it's up on the screen. I think everybody had it. It's your very last page in the packet. With Durham Farms, we have a lot of different documents, and there's a lot of different design guidelines for out there in that neighborhood. And one of those design guidelines had referred to in a couple different documents 18 inches of the porch height along roadways, and we've been working with that, and we've been able to get that for the most part in most of the subdivision. There had been some different issues where that some were lower than what I'm going to talk about, and then some were, of course, higher, which is fine. But then we had a lot of different issues with a lot of the homes that were being built. A lot of the people that are buying the homes are 55 and older, and we were starting to run into some issues, the builders were, with the access from the garage. So when you're looking at the elevation of the lot, all the lots are a little bit different, but what happens is when we increase the height at the very front of the house, it makes it where you might have 2 or 3 steps in the garage, from the garage into the house. And by reducing it down to 12 inches instead of 18 inches, creates the responsibility to have 2 risers, which create a step and then a step onto the porch, and then a 2-inch threshold above that, which actually gives you about 14 inches. And this was something that I brought it to you guys. It's something that we can approve at the staff level and just go ahead and make that change. But it was something I kind of wanted to make you all aware of, because this 18 inches has kind of shown up in a lot of the documents. I think originally it was just a design document that Durham Farms had, and then somehow it ended up on plats and things and referring to this 18 inches. And what we're looking to do is change it to where we have here, where you just have a 6-inch riser and then another 6-inch riser to get onto the porch. There'll be many houses out there that'll be higher than this, but at least this would get us a level that's visually pleasing, but yet not right on the ground. Another thing, as the development is progressing, and there's a lot of different builders. There's 4 or 5 different major builders that are building out there, and so they're all building different kinds of houses, very attractive houses, but different kinds of houses, and this step issue has just been very confusing. Another thing that's been happening is it wasn't really a clear requirement that the steps be bricked or stoned or something like that, and so on a majority of the last 50 houses that have been built, a lot of them, they're just doing very plain concrete, which really isn't representative of the quality of the home. Then it kind of, if you get to looking at it, it kind of stands out a little bit when you go look at some of the earlier homes that were done that were brick. And what this does is, by making this change, then we'll be able to require brick or stone covered steps, and that'll to be more attractive out in that area. And so I just wanted to bring that to you all and share it with you and answer any questions that you might have as well. It's kind of a small issue, but this is it gets very confusing with different builders and the different homes that are being built out there. And then this gives us a very clear path going forward, that basically if you don't do this, then you may have to tear out a foundation and redo it. So that's one of the reasons I kind of wanted to bring it to you, because if later you're like, hey, Keith, what's going on? Why'd y'all make them rip out foundations or half a house out in Durham Farms? It's going to be because we made this change and we made it very clear to everybody that you've got to do it to this standard. And if it's not done to the standard, then you're going to have to correct it at whatever that cost would be. So that's one reason I'm kind of bringing it to the Planning Commission to make it aware. But I think this will clarify it, and it makes a lot of sense as well.
Hey, thank you. Are there any questions for Director Free on this Durham Farms Design Guidelines clarification? Okay. Ms. Hardwick.
One quick question.
Yes.
As I am getting older and taking care of older parents, are there homes where I can take a wheelchair from the garage straight into the house, or is that just not available in the city?
It's not available, and the developer's here, and he can maybe answer that question. But I believe not in this particular neighborhood with these, with the elevations that we have required on the front of the house, unless you do some sort of ramping that's involved in that. Is that? That's a fair statement. Can you come to the microphone maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself, Bill. And
my name is Bill Charles. I'm the developer of Durham Farms. Barry, part of the reason why we're asking for this is, to Keith's point, there's been confusion as to how the rules and regulations really work. We have seen an awful lot of changes in Durham Farms since the beginning. Part of that is for the demographic you just described. So we're seeing that there's a lot of retirees that don't want to have steps going into the house. We felt like this compromise that we're asking of the city, even though you have potentially 2 steps coming up to the top of the porch, inside your garage, typically your garage door is the most usable entry into a house. It's typically not the porch. So our thought process with our architect was, if we could have a slight pitch on the garage floor, which is always common, so we'll have about a quarter of an inch to about a quarter of an inch of fall per foot. So if our garage floors are, let's say our garage depth are 19 to 21 feet in depth, we could literally make up about 6 inches of those 2 risers, meaning that you'd only have then 1 step into the house from the garage floor, or, to Keith's point, we could probably come up with a way to create a ramp and be able to ramp up in from the garage easier than what we currently can do, because...
Which would be interior, not exterior.
Yeah, it'd be an interior.
So it wouldn't be seen from the neighborhood.
That would probably help too, yeah, aesthetically. But we're finding, again, a lot of our... If you look at the demographics for Hendersonville as a whole, there is a huge need for product that accommodates less steps into the house.
Well, I like the design, and I clearly understand why you're doing it. My question was simply, I guess, really from the garage standpoint, will I be able to get a wheelchair in there? Hopefully later rather than sooner, but it's coming.
You'd still have 1 step from the garage floor into the house, unless we come back and ask you guys again to lower 1 more step, 1 more riser. That's a fair statement, which right now, instead of us going down that path, we want to test and see where we're at with this version. And if this comes to a place where we have more conversations with people about steps into the house, then I'll come back to you guys. But my feeling is we might still be able to accommodate that 1 step from the garage floor into the house with a ramp inside the garage instead of multiple steps, which we currently have.
I agree. I think it gets us closer to either getting it with that grade or getting it close enough. You could ramp it. But the thing about it is, with the particular type of development that we have out there and the architecture, it's something where we really don't want to get these things right on the ground. It would make it certainly more accessible, but it would visually totally change the character. Just having it off that much makes a big difference versus it being right on the ground. So, but it's just trying to find a happy medium with that, and I think this will do it.
Okay. Thank you, Director Free, and thank you, Bill. Let's move to Planning Director comments.
Yes, I just have a couple of quick comments. First, an update I'm updating you all on the things that go to the BOMA, and the Firestone rezoning went to BOMA and failed. So that rezoning was denied. Anderson Park preliminary development plan passed, and Durham Farms with the commercial areas, with the revised, or the final development plan, that passed as well. So that's the things that went to BOMA. Additionally, everybody has books that you had in front of you. We're going to have our second work session on the changes to the zoning ordinance. We're going to have that on Tuesday, September the 17th at 6:30. And be sure to look those over. There's an executive summary as well as the books. What we'll do is bring those books with you, and we'll go over all of the things. What we'll do is we'll get a quick recap of some of the main things to the point of where we got to last time, and then we'll pick up and start going into more detail. I'm anticipating that being 2-hour work session. It possibly could be 3, but no longer than that. But bring your books, and then what we're going to do is when you bring your books on that Tuesday's work session, Lauren will take those from you, and then from that point, if we're all comfortable with it, we'll make the changes that come out of the work session, and then we'll fix new books and get those to you prior to the next to the meeting in November to consider approval or recommend. October? Yeah, in October. So we'll try to look at doing that. I think I was a month ahead of my time.
All right.
And that's all I have.
Thank you. I would just like to follow up on one comment that the director made with regard to the rezone. I want to thank the Planning Commission for your hard work on this potential rezone and the work that you did, and I want to thank you for your findings of fact. You did some great work there, and as you know, we are not the deliberative body, we are the recommending body, and so the Board of Mayor and Aldermen certainly has the right to do that, but I do want this commission to know that as far as this particular submittal went, you folks did a great job in providing great counsel to our Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and with what they do with it is their call. Okay? Thank you very much. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Got a motion to adjourn? Any second? Second. We're adjourned.